All right, are we there?
Hi.
We are.
How
All right.
you?
I'm calling this meeting of the Woburn School Committee to order. Please say pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Will the superintendent please call the rolls?
Mr. Austin.
Present.
Ms. Chisholm.
Here.
Ms. Cormier.
Present.
Ms. Crowley.
Present.
Mr. Morenin. Present. Ms. Wetzel.
Present.
Mr. Lipset.
Present. All right, we have the approval of 2/22/24 minutes. Do I motion approve?
Second.
All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. Public comment. Is there anyone who wishes to address the committee tonight? All right, seeing no one. Our student rep is not with us tonight. So, I'm sorry, Mr. Viola, our city council liaison, thank you for joining us tonight. Do you have anything you wish to share with us? Thank you very much for coming. And I'm sorry, Councilor Lou DeMambro as well. Hello, Mr. Council.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for joining us as well. I appreciate it. All right. So we can move on to reports and presentations of the superintendent and staff. I am very happy to welcome Ms. Samantha Stone to talk to us about Kindness Day.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you for coming.
So, as many of you know, in Mayor Concan's campaigns, he talked a lot about creating a culture of service across our community. And that was really an important foundation for his administration. So, one of the first things he did was bring on the community outreach function. I'm personally very grateful that he did that, but hopefully also the community is as well. We've certainly seen a need for that. And the first 2 or 3 weeks of the job, I spent talking to different nonprofits in our community to understand what services they offered, what we could do as a city to support them. And one of those conversations was with a young man, Connor, from Connor's Kindness Project, and his grandmother. And if you don't know what they do, they create kits that are given to children in different points of transition in their life. Maybe they're not well and they have an extended hospital stay, or maybe they're having a foster placement for the first time and being taken away from their parents, or if there's some other, maybe there's been a fire at their house. Something else has happened in their community, and these kits are just a way to add a little bit of a smile, a little distraction, a little joy to those children. Connor is a very young man. He's now a young teen, but when he founded the organization, he was quite a young man and has made a really big impact. And we were just talking in general around kindness in the work that they do. And it really sparked this idea that the best way we can create a culture of service across our organization is to create things that bring our community together in easy ways that everybody can do. And so Kindness Day was sort of born out of that conversation with a lot of support from a lot of people. And the last 4 to 6 weeks, we have been planning a citywide Kindness Day for the first time. The goal of Kindness Day is to make it easy, whether you're working or living and you're in Woburn that day, to find a way to make an extra smile or contribute to the community in a very easy way, no matter where you are. And so we have 17 partners that are working with us across the community who are doing lots of different activities. We have programming in lots of places. And we would be completely remiss in doing a citywide effort around kindness if we didn't touch our students and the school system. And so one of the things that we did was working with Matt and Sue, we put together ideas that teachers might want to do in their classroom to help with Kindness Day. And I think most of you have sort of that flyer that lists off various ideas, and you'll see they're really simple, they're really straightforward, some things some teachers might already be doing in different ways in their classrooms. And we invite them to participate in Kindness Day in that way. We also have a number of things that are being done in after-school programs and open programs to the public. We know it's a half day of school, and so hopefully families will enjoy having an easy new way to entertain their kids for a little bit of that time. And so we have put these things together in an effort to make it easy, but also to provide any supplies. So if any of the teachers want to participate in any of the ideas that are shared, or their own idea that they come up with, we'll make sure to provide the supplies they need to do that, because we're not looking, again, to make this difficult for anyone. So with that, I will, pause and open up for opportunity for comments or questions that you have about this effort.
Any comments or questions for Ms. Stone? Ms. Crowley?
So I just, as you were talking, Ms. Stone, I looked at the QR code, and it looks like the public can access a bunch of things to do on the city website, such as help create a chain of kindness for Kindness Day. It looks like the senior center is involved.
Yes.
So if someone really wants to celebrate Kindness Day, they could go to the city website, and there's a whole host of things that they can do.
Absolutely. There's another whole host of things. There's a bunch of partners. I don't know if you have a copy of this brochure, but that's on the website as well. And there's tons of great activities that, again, designed everything from dropping off a food donation at one of our fire stations to participating in a thrift store fashion show, which I thought was such a fun idea. Not my idea. I take no credit. Olga gets that at St. Vincent's. And donating hangers. So we have lots of ways that we hope people will give a little extra smile and participate that day. There are some things that are not listed on that public site, and we'll be sharing those as they happen because they're being done by private groups. The Girl Scouts are building birthday packages. The Boy Scouts are building personal care kits. City Hall employees are participating in an activity. So in addition to all that you see there, there's also a lot of other things that are happening simultaneously.
Ms. Watson, go ahead.
Thank you. I love this. I'm really excited to participate myself, my family as well. And I like the list you provided with to us that kids can do at school, because I also think you could do it at home too as a family, which is really exciting. I do have a question. If a family needed supplies or wanted supplies, would they be able to come to you to get supplies to do this at home?
Yeah, within reason. I'm donating all the supplies personally because we don't have a budget.
Got it.
And so I have a bunch of things that are craft materials and things, and I'm very happy to share them until they run out. But yes, we actually have a homeschool group that happens to be doing a walk at Horn Pond that day, and they're actually going to create kindness, paint rocks along their, pick up rocks along the trail, paint messages, and sort of lead them around. So absolutely, if a family needs supplies, but also we would encourage them to go to the craft program at the library. There's a YMCA table for making cards. There's a Spence Farm activity happening, so we also encourage them to join those things as well.
Perfect. So plenty of ways to get involved.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
It's gotten, we took this little idea and lots of people wanted to participate. We got lots of ideas, and we're so grateful that so many people want to join us on this day and make it special.
Awesome. Thanks.
Thank you so much. Mr. Austin, did you have something?
I do not.
Okay, so I thought I said. Mr. Berwin.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I couldn't Samantha. Good evening. How are you doing tonight?
I'm well.
Obviously, I've known Connor and his grandmother for many, many years. I've seen him at some of the elementary schools. I've seen the program. So, to have this to come to Woburn and see it grown to what it's going to be on that day is truly a testament to Connor and his grandmother and the efforts and the foundation that they've established across not just Woburn, but many, many communities as well. So, I'm looking forward to many of these activities. Looks like a fun day.
It really does, and we're hoping to videotape an interview with Connor to hopefully inspire other young people. He has some incredible numbers of people that they've touched in this program, thousands of people that they've helped and served, and it started as a little thing. And so if you haven't heard his story, it's really compelling and really wonderful to see a young person take something and run with a lot of support from family who made sure to take that vision and help support it as well. It's great.
And I just want to add, thank you so much for creating all of this, for taking inspiration from Connor and his project, and for thinking to include the schools in a really meaningful way. I think that this is going to be something that can really bring the community together, and I'm really looking forward to it. So
Thanks.
thank you.
I have to tell you, there are so many creative people in the community. When we sat down and talked about what we do, that all these ideas came from the people who created the library, created their programming, the thrift store folks created their program, the senior center created their programming. So it's awesome to see all the ways that we as a community want to come together and help each other.
Yeah, I guess I'd just say thank you. I did share this idea with the WTA leadership, and this is the bare minimum. So the teachers are very excited about what they possibly can do on that day. So again, appreciate the support and look forward to the 20th.
Thank you. We're really excited to have the schools participate in this. I think it couldn't be a citywide event without it.
Thank you very much for coming. I appreciate it. Have a good night. All right. We're going to move on now. As the committee remembers, and as the public may be aware, at our last meeting, we approved the addition of a position for the school committee, the position of vice chair. So at this time, I would like to open the floor to nominations for the position of vice chair to serve the remainder of the 2024 school year.
I'm going to nominate Ellen Crowley. Second, whether she wants to or not.
If nominated, will you serve?
I will accept the nomination.
All right, so we have a nomination, we have a second, and we've accepted that nomination. Do we have any other nominations? All right. Seeing none. All in favor of electing Ellen Crowley as the new and first vice chair of the Woburn School Committee, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? The ayes have it.
Yay. Good, Dawn.
Thank you, everyone.
And I would like to personally congratulate Ms. Crowley, who has been a longstanding member of this committee, a force for good, a force for a voice for our kids, and for the kinds of supports that they need. And I think she will make a fantastic vice chair. So thank you for your nomination, Mrs. Chisholm, and thank you for your willingness to step into that role, Ms. Crowley. All right, so we now have a vote on our new curriculum. This came to us through the curriculum subcommittee at our last meeting. Ms. Young, I don't know if you wanted to say a few words, or Dr. Crowley, on this before we begin.
Sure. So through the curriculum subcommittee, and then for anyone that on the committee that wanted to review the curriculum over the course of the last week, it is the elementary K-5 comprehensive health curriculum and the middle school 6th and 7th grade history curriculum. And both were provided presentations. They were brought forward to us through our educators and coordinators, and we look forward to the possibility of implementing them.
Any questions from the committee? I know we talked a little bit about this at our last meeting as well.
I'd like to make a motion that we adopt the new curriculum as presented by Ms. Young.
All right, so moved. Do I have a second?
Second.
All right. Any discussion on the motion? Ms.
I'm
Crowley.
in favor of the motion. As you recall, members, we had two teachers in the audience that were actually in the social studies department. And so they came over to us after the meeting and said that they were in favor. And the process went through the process of reviewed by the educators. And so, and I had a chance to look it over pretty thoroughly. So I'm in favor of the motion.
Okay. Any additional thoughts? I'll echo that. I mean, I think the collaborative process that arrived us at these curricula is a really positive thing, and I think based on what I've seen, these will be wonderful additions for our kids and for our district. So we'll open that for a vote. All in favor of adopting the curricula as written? No, actually, I need a motion. We have a motion. All in favor of adopting the curricula as written, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. And thanks to all of the educators who participated in the process as well. All right, and that brings us to our final agenda item of the evening. Ms. Crowley, I know this came through the resources subcommittee, and I know you had some extensive minutes on it, so I wondered if you might be able to present through those with some discussion and some commentary from the administration. But Dr. Crowley, if you wanted to talk a little bit about it.
Sure, I'll start. And
Sure.
maybe we'll go back and forth.
Yes.
So the committee had asked us to explore capacity issues at the elementary school. And we had a robust conversation on Monday morning here at the Joyce. The minutes will be read into record, et cetera. Before I go further, I do want to thank there's elementary principals here tonight that were here Monday morning too. So Ms. Maloney, Dr. Mara, Mr. Nickerson, I think I saw Dr. Riley come in. Mr. Gallo, I think, is over there as well. they're here tonight to listen to the discussion, and they provided context on Monday, which was very helpful. Over the past few years, just to give context, we have had sort of an issue with space at elementary schools. So we created the SOAR program a couple years ago. That's at the Malcolm White. The RISE 2 program we moved last year from the Shamrock to the Harold Wyman. So we've been, the Goodyear is at capacity with the GAIN program. So we have a variety of different programs at elementary schools, and we've been moving people in places. But we're really kind of at a crossroads where we have to look more thoroughly at where we are as it relates to particularly the elementary schools and equity around the district. And so at Monday's meeting, we went through a few options to present to the resource subcommittee meeting, predicated on looking more extensively. We have a feasibility study that was commissioned that is really challenging us to look at our budget in a new way. And so exploring any option that's available has been sort of a mantra from the committee and from City Hall. And so a lot of the feasibility study, our FY25 budget, leads to this discussion as well. And so that's the context that we set for the Monday morning resource subcommittee meeting. And so I'll
So, like Dr. Crowley said, so the resources subcommittee is myself, Ms. Wetzel, and Mr. Mulrennan. On Monday's meeting at 8 o'clock, we had the entire elementary school leadership here to advise us on the space issue in the elementary schools. There are basically 3 schools that have that are hot spots for space, and that is the Harold Wyman, the Malcolm White, and the Goodyear. The Malcolm White is innovating ways to use space. With the increase of students that have multilingual learning instruction at a high rate at the Malcolm White principal has had to do things like move meetings to various parts of the building. The Malcolm White Library may be used completely next year for the purposes of instruction. And so there's some really, I would say, serious space issues with regards to the Malcolm White. Noteworthy is that the Malcolm White currently has 33% of students that receive multi-language learning services. So that's one area. The second school is the Harold Wyman, as Dr. Crowley alluded to. The Harold Wyman absorbed the RISE 2 program, which now has 22 students. And so that has obviously utilized classrooms, and so there's a shortage of space. The Harold Wyman is concerned about the addition of kindergarten students next year, which would require a 4th kindergarten classroom, which would be problematic in terms of the space issue. So Harold Wyman was an area of concern. Then the third school is the Goodyear. The Goodyear has the GAIN program, and so is using space for that. The Goodyear also is coming to use the hallway for delivery of instruction, and the principals are sharing an office. And there's things that are happening on the school level, such as the library is completely unavailable at times for these various elementary schools, and so the school committee has asked to have some suggestions as to how to alleviate the space pressures. Other things that are relevant to the discussion is the fact that our district lines were drawn a long time ago. We are now a different school system. We are now a more urban school system, and our lines are not updated, our district lines. Not having the space in elementary schools also has an impact on the culture, that teachers don't have the availability of space to collaborate, things of that nature. Ms. Wetzel pointed out that it's difficult for parents to get into elementary schools when there's no library, for instance, and so things like the book fair would be difficult. So that being said, we identify that there is a space issue, and the options are as follows. The first option is to take no action and sort of give a wait-and-see approach. That would continue in the areas that the special teachers, the teachers that teach the specials, such as PE, library, health, art, and music, will be using a cart. That's happening in some schools in some areas. So they will continue to do that, and so the specials no longer have a classroom. And that would also be a budgetary issue, is because if we sustain the same thing, we may have about a budget shortage in that regard. But as we are looking at the feasibility study, this would be an option for the school committee to just sort of see what happens. The pro to this, the positive aspect of this is that students wouldn't have to change schools. There would be no redistricting. And we could certainly wait to see what the building committee and the feasibility study, how that teases out. Second option is intra-district school choice, allowing parents to choose different schools. If I am a Goodyear family and I would like to go to the Reeves, then I could apply for Reeves choice, and that could alleviate some pressure on the Goodyear. So that is an option that the school committee could consider, adopting a policy of intra-school choice, and that would be a voluntary option for families, and so the families would have that choice. It's noteworthy that there are schools in this district that have open seats. So while some schools are jammed packed, other schools have lots of space. So that's a relevant piece of information. The second option, or the third option, is to purchase portable classrooms. A portable classroom could cost as much as $1 million, maybe $500,000. We're not really sure. This option is, as my minutes reflect, undeveloped at this point. But we certainly could purchase portable classrooms. Where we would put them, who knows? But we could put one at the Goodyear, one at the Malcolm White, and one at the Harold Wyman. But space-wise, land-wise, it would make sense to put them at the Reeves. Put them at the Reeves, we would have to redistrict. Okay. So buying portables is an option. Regionalization of schools. So we would take the Harold Wyman and the Reeves as a region pod. We would take the Malcolm White, Goodyear, and Shamrock as a region pod. And then, of course, the schools in North Woburn. So then the students could pick which school they would go to within that particular pod. That could ease some tension on some of the schools. That was a very, very innovative idea. Then we have option 5, is to take the entire Reeves preschool. It's important to note that the preschool at the Reeves uses a substantial amount of space. Is it 8 classrooms?
8 classrooms.
8 classrooms. We could take the preschool out of the Reeves, put them at the Linscott, then slice up the North Woburn elementary school system so that half of the students attend the Linscott and half attend the Alta Vesta.
Go ahead.
No, please.
No, that's.
Is that right? Yeah. Okay. And then that would free up tons of space at the Reeves. That would be part 1. Part 2 would be, okay, now who's going to go to the Reeves? So then we would look at moving students, potentially in the neighborhood area of the Reeves, placing them at the Reeves, and that would free up some pressure, particularly on the Harold Wyman and the Goodyear. That's that option. Oh, and that does not include the Shamrock preschool. The Shamrock preschool would remain at the Shamrock. This would just be the Reeves. Then option 6 is to redistrict the entire elementary school system. Look at all of the lines, look at all of the students, and basically redraw the lines in terms of equity, in terms of learning needs, neighborhoods, school resources, school space, the whole thing. And then finally, option 7 is to rent a separate space for the entire preschool. And so the entire preschool, the Shamrock, and the Reeves would move to an entirely different space, and that would, of course, free up space at the Shamrock and the Reeves, and we would of course have to redistrict based on the addition of new space. I think what is called space mining in the business. So those are the options. I probably missed a couple things, so I'll let the administration fill in. I really appreciate the principals coming to the school committee meeting. We asked them, I scheduled the meeting right at the beginning of school. And so it was really nice to have them all here to give us some insight. And I also commend them on just the amazing work that they're doing within these constraints. And it was a very good discussion. So I really thank the principal leaders.
Thank you, Ms. Crowley.
Welcome.
Dr. Crowley, I don't know if you have anything.
Just a point of clarification,
Yes.
with the Reeves moving to if the Reeves the preschool were to move to North Woburn, the idea would be pre-K, K and 1 would be at the Linscott, and then
Yes.
2 through 5 at the Alta Vista, just to be.
Thank you. I know there was some discussion about how they were going to split it. I don't know if there was some discussion about that,
Yeah.
but I think the proposal or the option as written was K1, pre-K, K1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And there are some advantages that were teased out with that I didn't mention, that it would create that sort of cohesive culture between the two schools, that if we did build a mega North Woburn school in that region, it would have that sort of cohesiveness. And, just the ideas were popping about ways in which those two schools could share a common culture, PTOs and such. And Ms. Maloney, principal of the Herald Wyman, has that experience of the merging of two schools recently. So we were talking about that a little bit too. That's the word splitting in elementary schools don't sound good, but then if you think about the way in which it could become a more cohesive space.
Okay.
Yeah. That's all. So I'll let you guys all discuss, and I'll be back.
All right. Thank you for putting all of that together. I know that was a complicated and free-flowing exchange of ideas, and thanks again to the principals, both those who are here and those who couldn't make it tonight, for all of their work in presenting us with these options. So, members, I think certainly with the potential impact of this on our district, this is not a decision that we should be making lightly, and certainly not one I think that we can make tonight. What I would like to propose then is that we put this decision on the agenda for our next meeting. That would allow for members to ask any follow-up questions they have, for time to review all the options, and time for the public and for the community to weigh in. Dr. Crowley and I are talking about ways to communicate this directly with the public very soon, so that we have people able to dive into this, to see how it's going to affect them, how it's going to affect their family, how it's going to affect their community, and to present us with ideas, maybe even alternate ideas that we haven't thought of. What I would like to see if we could do, so I'll propose this. I would accept a motion that we attempt to come to some kind of a consensus now, at least, on which of these we might be able to reject out of hand.
Okay, can we have deliberations first? Just because
Yeah, I mean, certainly, I apologize,
Yeah.
you're right, I'm jumping the gun.
Right, yeah.
So let's open this to questions,
Yeah.
and then we can begin any movement. So, thank you, Mrs. Chisholm, and go ahead.
When we built our new schools, we did it because we had cots and kids learning on stages and classrooms and the hallways, and we promised everybody this would never happen. And this happened without any, we lost control of how we can control kids coming into our schools. So we've been inundated, and we have to handle this now. So I just, these problems are just not going to go away, so we have to handle them one at a time as we see fit. The whole thing with North Woburn is the only area in our city, besides the Clap losing their school, that has not gotten a new school. So now, if on top of not getting a new school, we're going to split families, because parents are awesome, but to get two kids to two different buildings at the same time might be a little bit difficult. I mean, I know that traffic up there is not the best in the morning, so that is something we have to think hard and long about. And kids not having their brothers and sisters in the same building is always something we always fought hard to keep families united and being together. And I just think that that has to really have, and I think unless we get staff on board, parents on board, taxpayers in that area on board to do anything up there, unless we build them a new school, I would never support that. Even though we might think this is a great idea, and it would be nice to have like 4 kindergarten teachers together or 6 kindergarten teachers together to work together, that's great. But again, we'll have inequity throughout the district. Redistricting would also affect the middle school, so we have to remember that too. So we have to watch the lines for that, for the class sizes here and at the Kennedy. And portables at all 3 of those schools are all pretty much landlocked. I don't know where we'd put them unless they were on the roof. I mean, the Malcolm White couldn't even expand their playground because they didn't have room. So I think that we are jumping the gun thinking we could do portables when I think that's just not even something we can discuss. And for $1 million apiece, I don't think that the city would want to do that. I'm removing the preschool to off-site. I don't want to see any of our kids in a industrial park. I just think that we also have to make sure that our staff feels comfortable to wherever we put these kids, and we're bringing children to an area that's unfamiliar. And again, parents will be to go into multiple locations. So I think this is a lot of work, and I feel bad. I don't want to burst everybody's bubble and say none of this works and I hate everything and let's go home. But I think at the same time we need to put a lot of time and effort into this. And as much as I hate that R word, that might be our best bet to do something. Because then if we say, okay, parents are going to volunteer, are they volunteering at kindergarten through 5th grade? Or do I take a kid from the good year, send them over to the Reeves, and all of a sudden at 3rd grade, that is bursting. Do we send them back to the good year? I mean, it's just, I hate that we're even here. But I'd rather be fighting for getting a new school for the North Woburn more than I am for, throwing all this into the wind. But I understand nobody should be having a classroom in the hallway. And principal and assistant principal should not be sharing an office. And to lose library, that's what we did years ago. And again, the kids would have library, once a month. And I would hate to see that happen too. And for staff not having room to be able to have their meetings, it's terrible. But I mean, I don't know what the answers are going to be, but I read this today and I was like, oh my God. So, but it's only tea in there, I promise.
Thank you for that. Additional comments, questions, Ms. Crowley and then Ms. Watson.
I really appreciate Ms. Chisholm's comments. I particularly agree with the concept that we built these schools for the purpose of use, and then we're not using them effectively.
Right.
I think that is just that we're not effectively using the resources the best we can.
Correct.
And that is just, I think that just another outcome that was discussed, of course, in a very hypothetical way, is that a lot of the middle school splitting, your Goodyear and Harold Wyman could be alleviated. So that was just an advantage that I didn't mention in my presentation. And as I have the floor, I think maybe for the next meeting, what I'll do is I didn't realize that I was going to be the main event. What I'll do is I'll create a slideshow so that we can kind of see a visual of the presentation next time.
And we can talk about how
options.
that's going to go. I think that we may sort of
Okay.
present something as well.
All right. So just let me know if I need
Yeah,
to do that.
I appreciate
But I really appreciate Ms. Chisholm pointing out that, we build these $100 million schools, and MSBA, restricts us all, that whole thing. But I do think we should use them the right way. So.
Ms. Watson.
Thank you. I just wanted to thank Ms. Crowley and all the principals. I was at the meeting on Monday, and a lot of good information was shared and ideas were shared. So thank you, Ms. Crowley, for that leadership during that meeting. That was great, and Dr. Crowley as well. And a few thoughts I had during the meeting, which I shared, and just some things that I thought of even just sitting here now. I think the portables are very, very expensive, and if we're looking to build new schools in the very near future, to spend that much money on a portable classroom when we really just want a new building it's a lot. I think I was at the Goodyear yesterday for Read Across America, and I saw the tables in the hallway, and it made me think to what Mr. K said about kids learning in those. And they are certainly at the end of the hallway removed, but you know, when a kid's walking past and there's someone trying to learn, I can see how that could be very distracting for both the learner and for the teacher. And so teaching in the classroom is hard, and you know, that's what we have to do because we have no space. And even when voting was set up, I actually saw the school set for band in front of, on the other side of voting. So they were coming in, I'm assuming, to play some instruments, also when voting was going on. So it's hard. It's really difficult, I think, with the space that we have. And the loss of specials, which was mentioned, it would be very sad to see the library turned into a classroom and then the library made smaller because we need the classroom space. Specials are really important, and that just seems to me where we're taking away the art on a cart, all these other specials on a cart, but they need a place where kids can go and learn. If I'm going into an art room and I'm looking on the wall, I'm seeing all these colors, that's learning. I'm seeing pictures of things that other kids made, that's a way to learn. If I'm getting art on a cart, I'm not seeing that. And if I'm having art in a library, I'm not painting because I don't want to get the tables messy for the books that are going to come in there right after me. So I think that makes it difficult, and I would venture to say the students would suffer because they're getting that same learning experience when they're not in a classroom built for that particular thing. And we don't want that for our students. And the preschool off-site, I agree, in an industrial park, where's the playground? Where are people parking, dropping off, pickup? How is that safe? Because we're not going to be able to control cars driving back and forth if we're in an office building. So I think that would be dangerous, especially for those littlest learners who, if they're not holding a hand, some of them take off. So I think we need to be really mindful of that. And like Ms. Crowley said, the lines haven't been drawn in a long time. It was based off of a Woburn, however many years ago that the lines were drawn, and we're a very different city now. I mean, we're being compared to cities like Somerville and Cambridge. We need to think that way because we're a developing, growing city. So just some thoughts I had. Thank you.
Ms. Cormier.
Thank you. So a number of same kind of random thoughts. I'm thinking about how Ms. Chisholm mentioned we lost control of how kids come into our schools, and looking at what building is happening, especially in North Woburn, that is the area, last I looked, that was gaining the most and even already has the most, where we had to put some kids at the Eldervest and then they had to move to the Goodyear because there just wasn't room. I agree about the portables. It's a huge expense and they don't seem to really alleviate the problem if we can even access them at this point. I don't mind pre-K off-site at an industrial park, depending on, obviously, a mindful choice of that, but you do have daycares in Cummings Park. If we have options as far as, playgrounds, of course, would be phenomenal for the littles, or some kind of indoor space at the very least. But of course, we're going to keep them safe at pickup, drop-off, and any other time. So I'm open to that idea. I appreciate that the middle school splitting would be alleviated, as Ms. Crowley mentioned, because I know that's a concern for a lot of folks, and I think in our day it was a choice. If you went to the Shamrock, you could choose to split, but or you could choose which one you went to, but it's not really, doesn't work that way anymore. And my other thought was something that you said, and I can't remember now. But it's, even with and I know nobody has these numbers in front of them, but how much space we actually have in the schools that have space, is that even enough, and when would that run out? Even if we did redistrict and we split everything evenly, there's still the building, there's still the moving in, and then we'll still be without room. I mean, I know ideally it won't happen in the next school year, and hopefully we'll be able to build in the meantime. I don't know how long the building takes place, how long that takes to get a building put up. Obviously, a lot can change in that time. But I appreciate the work that's been put into this, and we'll see.
Maybe Ms. Young wants
Yeah.
to address the numbers.
Sorry, I just want to clarify for the question. So is the question that if you were to redistrict, if there's enough space in the school, in the current buildings?
Yeah, so Ms. Crowley mentioned that some schools did have some space, and of course, if we, say, moved pre-K to another facility of some sort, there would be 8 classes there, 3 at the Shamrock. It just, I don't know.
There is you would have, if you were to if the preschool were to move out of the Reeves into an alternative space, you would have, and you were to like have everyone go, like distribute evenly across the district, there would be plenty of room.
Oh, okay.
Yes, if that's helpful for context.
That is, thank you.
Yeah.
It's helpful to clarify. I mean, I think,
Sure.
the conversation here is regarding crowding, and we are not overcrowded, I think it is fair to say, as a district.
No.
No, we're
But-
crowded at certain
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
places.
And this is, you know,
And we've run out of places to turn.
and so to sort of contextualize this sort of historically, right? I mean, you know, our district lines, does anyone actually know when they were drawn? It's been a while. Right?
1800.
I mean, we've had some shifting around with the clap and others. but-
1989,
Yeah.
because my son was affected by it.
Okay. So,
First school committee meeting I went to.
right. So it's been at this point 35
You never
years
Forty, probably.
since we
Yeah.
redrew
Yeah.
our district lines. And we are a different community, and education is different, right? I think that's another thing that we need to consider is, you know, we have specialized programs, we have different modes of delivering instruction now, and we've seen a lot of shifting in terms of where population is in Woburn. And all of that has contributed to where we are now, where we simply don't have an equitable distribution of our student population. And so that's, you know, administration has been doing this work for a long time now of trying to, you know, do this patchwork, right? Because talking about redistricting is a big deal. And we need to acknowledge that it's a big deal and it's going to affect families. And that's not something we step into lightly. But at this point, we are at a moment where we need to figure out where this is going to go, and we are at a moment where we can figure out where this is going to go, as we have a feasibility study that's going to be pointing us towards the future of our capital, you know, our buildings. So I didn't mean to dominate there, but does anyone else have any deliberation, any questions, comments?
The only thing, it's March, are we saying that we're going to need to do something by September in order to help out those 3 schools?
I think that's up to the committee,
Okay.
predicated on response. One of the things that you mentioned, Ms. Chisholm,
Yeah.
was the number of students. Since September, we've had 336 students enroll.
So it's a school.
So that, a decent-sized
Yeah.
school. So, in other words, so enrollments keeps going up.
Mhm. And, you know, one of my questions too, or I don't know if it's a contractual thing too, if we do like the art on a cart, so if they come into that classroom, so the teacher doesn't get their time in their classroom by themselves, to, you know, be able to do something, or even be able to meet with other teachers in their cohort. So I just,
Doesn't know where to go.
right, so it's, yeah. And this is all, I mean, like when we built the schools, it was like we had an art room and a music room, and we had a practice room, and we had a conference room, and so it's like, it's got to stop somewhere too. I mean, I don't know how we're going to and make these decisions, so it's got to get out there so parents can decide.
And Mrs. Chisholm, again, to that point, I mean, we have, again, correct me if I'm wrong, but we have buildings where that is already happening.
Mm-hmm, right.
We have buildings where,
Right.
and that is currently inequitably distributed, right? And so, you know, in terms of the question of when we need to act, you know, so one of these options has to be done in September. That may be option one, where we are talking about extending, I don't know, the phrase has come out now, so the art on a cart idea, right? Where we are moving specials. If it is not that, it is one of the others, right? And so, unless there are other, yeah, Mr. Moore.
If I could, Mr. Chairman, thank you very much. Obviously, thank you to Ms. Crowley for, and all the principals that came that morning and that are here tonight as well, and hearing all the options. You know, Ms. Crowley, you also, the citywide feasibility study is going to be addressed, I believe, you know, starting Thursday night is the initial meeting. So that's going on. The issue of space and, you know, equity and all that is going on. And I think the phrase was used quite a bit the other morning about duct tape and Band-Aids. And these phrases came up before when we had to build a new school because of the extensive duct tape and Band-Aid to our solutions. So the best part of tonight's presentation, I believe, Mr. Chairman, from Ms. Crowley, and I'm not sure the scheduling of it all, is to allow these principals before us tonight in, you know, in the schools themselves, with the administration, somehow, some way, through PTOs, school cultures, whatever, get the word out that we're looking at these things. We're looking at a couple of ideas. You know, we could sit here all night long, come up with, you know, back and forth votes and back and forth discussion. And, you know, to your point, Mr. Chairman, in September, the school committee voted to do this. We don't want to do that. We want to allow some more brainstorming, some more tweaking, But I think the effort that, the administration and those principals put into getting down to 7, there was probably 17 at one point, and this came down to 7, Was it the best one? Who knows? But I think the idea of getting it out to the public, getting the word out, getting people thinking about the future of Woburn. And I did bring it up at the meeting about the MSBA, and Ms. Crowley's correct. They've got lots of restrictions to build a new school. It's not going to happen overnight, but when we built a lot of these schools, we built it by the MSBA standards. We weren't allowed to add an extra anything. I brought the Harold Wyman, they had to name a room. Well, it's going to be for, something. The MSBA wanted to know, what is it for? We had to name it. There was nothing multi-use space that we could just say, that's going to be multi-use for the future, thinking about the future, as indicated tonight, particularly North Woburn, what's happening, with the population up there and the changing demographics of everything. So I think, to get it out there as best as, the administration and the principals can do, and come back in, a week or two, whenever our next meeting might be, or do Ms. Crowley's resource meetings again, see where we're at, is, a step in the right direction, working with the citywide feasibility group once they get, a grasp on where they're headed. So, look forward to the future. Thank you.
Okay. Any additional input?
Just that, option 1 is in fact to do, I don't want to say nothing, obviously, it's not nothing, but to wait and see. But I am looking at I'm just putting this out, like a 17% budget, and the redistricting or these options are also a resource saver, which could impact the ability to fund the schools. So that's just the other thing. And then I know that there's these hot spots again, and one of them is the Harold Wyman, the kindergarten. So that would be the reason to do something before September. That's the reason to do something before September. Budget reasons, and because there's some, I wouldn't say urgency, but there's that space issue that is not predictable at this juncture.
Yeah, I would say that the Harold Wyman potential kindergarten addition is a very problematic part of
Yeah.
a hold steady option here. I don't know if the administration wants to weigh in. Do we have a sense of how we would approach that if the committee voted for option 1 at our next meeting and we did eventually have to add another Harold Wyman kindergarten classroom?
I think it would capture more space at the Harold, I'm looking at Kristen.
She's looking back.
Like,
She would figure it out.
Yeah, make it work somehow. So.
What we've done, again, I can't speak to what we would do in definitives. What we have done in the past with buildings, for example, between the Linscott and the Alta Vesta, is that we have done, after you get to a certain number, that incoming new students could get enrolled in a neighboring building. And so that would be just talking about kindergarten. Again, that would be an alternative conversation, but to your point of, I think that we would, if option 1 were to be where we went, we would have to have as part of that a conversation on at least an agreement of what we would do come a 4th kindergarten classroom at the Harold Wyman, because I don't think that we can't.
So option 1 could potentially come with a regionalization of some sort.
Or if we were to get to a certain number at the Harold Wyman, it would be what is the determination of what our next step would be.
Right. Okay.
Okay.
But on that, would that be a volunteer basis? Because I can't imagine if I bought $1 million house across from a brand-new school and I was told I can't go.
I would not be able to speak to the specifics of how it would run. What I'm saying is that we would have to come up with a plan, at least for how we would manage if we were to get over a certain number, because to the impact of opening that classroom, it would be more than we could fix without looking for an option. I don't know what that would have to be a separate conversation, but we would have to look at
Yeah, especially if they come with multiple children. We couldn't, that would be, no. Yeah.
All right.
It'd be tough.
Yes.
Okay.
Any additional thoughts?
Just in getting rid of options, the portable option, again, with the land available, it seems like it would be the Reeves. So we would be spending 8 million on portables, and then we would have to redistrict anyways. So seems to me like that option is not the best one. If it's far below, it's the worst option.
Okay. So that's a good segue.
Yes.
So I think, I'm sorry. Ms. Hudson, go
I
ahead,
was just going to
please.
say, I agree with that, and also I believe we talked about the portables going behind the building, so then where would drop-off be? Would it be in the back of the building? Or would parents park in the far lot and then walk around the building? So we'd have to, that's a logistical thing, but it would make it more difficult for that as well.
And I'm looking over at Mr. Nickerson right now. I'm sure he's thinking about where at his building you could possibly put literally anything else. But-
Yeah,
parking spot.
Well, the good year's in the same.
Yeah,
Yeah,
good
good-
as well,
yeah,
right.
yeah.
I don't know where you
Having just parked at the Malcolm White parking lot earlier
Even
this
the Harold
evening,
Lyman is-
it's fresh in my memory.
There's no space there.
There's no space to park.
Okay, so what I would like to propose to the committee is that we work with this list tonight to see if there are options here that we can very widely agree are not what we want to do moving forward, leaving us with 3 to 4 options that we can put to the public over the next few weeks, that we can give administration time to work through, to think about, and that we can then take action on at our March 27th meeting. So what I would invite is if members have suggestions on this, that they make a motion to eliminate any options, and we see where we go from there. Now, what I caution is, I don't think that it would necessarily be in our best interest to eliminate options that we have some significant division on. So keep that in mind as we deliberate, and maybe if it looks as though there is a lot of disagreement on any given one of these, a motion might be rescinded. But I think it is worth us looking through these and seeing if there are ones where, where 6 or 7 of us would agree that this is not what we want to do going forward. If that's the case, then we can, then it might be a good idea for us to move forward. If it's not, if we have a lot of disagreement on any given one, maybe we hold off on that until next time, if that makes sense. So, I'd open, Mr. Moran.
I quit, Mr. Chairman, sorry to interrupt you because I had a thought in my head. Eliminating this choice or that choice. I also brought it up during Ms. Crowley's resource meeting. We don't really have a cost affected to all of these. Not to say leave it alone, but, same as it's going and, again, more Band-Aids and more duct tape kicking the can down the road, whatever you want to call it, might work because it's not going to cost, more or less or whatever we're going to do, just fix it. And the others are going to cost a substantial amount of money. So do you guesstimate the amounts and, as far as, the talk of renting space or not renting a preschool or putting kids there, there's a cost associated with that. And Ms. Crowley brought up, I think Mr. Dizio's right down there. We just received our budget tonight, so it's another factor that's not included with a lot of these options. I don't know, the extenuating circumstances of each one of these, there's a cost affected to it. I don't see it here yet. I mean, it's probably available somewhere or guesstimates, but I don't think it's fair to, eliminate one without a true guesstimate, a true accurate count, unless someone has it. I'm sorry, go ahead. I'm done.
No, we don't have
Yeah.
firm numbers to
Yeah.
give to you necessarily.
Yeah.
But yeah, that we can get numbers
Yeah.
for you predicated on,
Today's
No.
prices.
well, today's prices, but, in other words, if you want us to pursue portables, we'll get you numbers.
Okay. Do I have any motions regarding any of these options at this time?
I'd like to make a motion that we put modular classrooms somewhere as an option.
Okay. Do I have a second on that?
Second.
Okay. Discussion on that motion.
Same as we said, I don't know where they would go. They are exceptionally expensive. seems prohibitive to really considering it as an option.
Is there anyone who'd like to speak in favor of this option?
And at the last resort, it could work, if necessary.
Okay.
If we can get them.
As we have other
If
options.
they're available, you only need one or two, and
Okay.
you can plug them in.
$100.
You know, we've used them in the past, you know, they arrived, they got plugged in, and we rented them, and we didn't own them, and, you know, we shipped them out again. You know, it's, again, is it 1, is it 8, how many is it? And where's it going, how's it gonna get there, and all that is an unknown that we're not gonna have for a while.
Mrs. Chisholm.
And the only
I'm
thing
sorry,
on,
were you
I'm
also
sorry,
saying?
yeah.
because the only thing on portables, for those of us who know the old Wyman, there's still a portable there from 1980. That whole section came in as portables and never went away because we felt it was fixed. So we can't put a timeline on it. When we had the portables for the clap, we knew that it was only to build the Goodyear School. So we knew it was going to be a time frame that we could handle. And everyone knew that it was an inconvenience, and neighbors were not happy, and we had a lot of issues with people with balls going over their fences and stuff like that. So I think that we need to be aware that that's something that if we say, okay, we're going to do a portable of 4 portables at the Reeves, is it for 2 years, 5 years, 10 years? Is it a never-ending cost?
Okay.
So I think that that's something we probably can say no.
Okay.
Though again, if that's the only thing that works,
And I think
I don't know.
If we get down
we can
to-
put like a comma. I mean, just circle these and say maybe.
I think that's fair, right? I mean, I think we can say sort of blanket, if we wind up where only one of these is the only thing that can work, we are likely doing that.
Right.
But when we have other options, are there things that we can move away from now? So are there members who would like to voice absolute support for keeping this option? Okay. So then we have a motion, we have a second, so why don't I open this up. All in favor of removing the module option, that is option 3, from this list, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, the ayes have it. So we will strike option 3 unless it is a last resort. We will not be investigating the option of modular classrooms at this time. Are there other options here that we can put on the table for potential elimination? Mr. Moore?
Just as far as, again, moving parts, and if you, through Ms. Crowley or perhaps Superintendent Crowley. No, I have it as number 5, move the preschool from the Reeves into the Linscott, put Linscott and Alta Vista kids together in the Alta Vista. No.
Yes, so
No.
that's what's written, but that's why I clarified.
Okay,
The idea is to move the Reeves preschool, 8 classrooms,
out of the Reeves.
out of the Reeves preschool up to the Linscott. The Linscott would become pre-K,
Oh, yeah, that's
K
1, 2, and 3.
and 1, and then 2 through 5. No, 1 through 5, rather.
No.
2 through
2 through
5.
5. Geez,
Yeah.
I double dip on the
Yeah.
ones.
2 and the 1.
So, yeah, but pre-K, K, and 1 would be at the Linscott, and the others would be at the Alta Vista.
Again, you know, getting back to Mrs. Chisholm's point about, that's a lot of families and a lot of moving parts and a lot of confusion, and a lot of hectic stuff. But if that's, you know, the only option to alleviate a problem over here, but are you creating another problem someplace else down the road? You know, that's kind of what I want to make sure we're looking at that too.
Would any member like to respond to that option? There wasn't a motion there.
No, that was just a discussion,
yeah.
I'm sorry.
No, that's fine, and that is helpful. Were there any members who would like to respond to that, including those who would like to respond with support for this option, or potential support worth discussing?
I think we should keep this option because it's a soft redistricting, and it can, if done the way that the administration envisions it, it could really alleviate the pressures that are directly impacting the elementary school system right now. So I understand. I'm glad you brought that up, actually, because I think someone should mention that about North Woburn it happening only in North Woburn. It just so happens that the Linscott is the smallest school, and it's just a matter of using that building that's still in very good shape according to the feasibility study, using it for education purposes. So I just don't think we should get rid of that option at this point, because I think it's a good option to alleviate some of these issues. That's all.
Additional thoughts? Ms. Cormier and
Yes.
Ms. White.
I know Ms. Chisholm also mentioned parents having to be in two places at once. I mean, they have to do that now if they have pre-K kids at the Reeves and then also have to go to the Alta Vista, which does not, negate the issue of parents having to be two places at once. I know some people have kids at Harold Wyman and Malcolm White. Pick up, I can't imagine, is very easy at all. I'm just curious if there was any particular rationale for pre-K through 1 being at Linscott versus Alta Vista.
Yeah, there's an elevator at the
Linscott. Very good. Thank you. And I don't want to remove this. I'm not a super fan, but I think it should be on the table.
Okay. Ms. Watson.
Yes, I agree. I don't think we should remove it. It was brought up at the meeting by one of the principals, I believe, that this sort of goes a little bit hand in hand with some of the ideas on the feasibility study, one of them being to move the preschool to that part of Woburn. Obviously, we have no idea what we're going to do, but it does kind of was a thought that was on the feasibility study. And I was actually going to say what Colleen said in terms of the drop-off or having 2 kids at different schools. We do already do that, but it is something to be considerate of, just because it is difficult, especially depending on traffic and things like that. And we did talk about at the meeting having it be almost like you have 1 PTO, you do 1 book fair, you do 1 holiday show, you do 1 spring show, that kind of thing. So it's really 2 buildings, 1 school. But yes, I do think we should keep it on as an option.
Okay. Ms. Chisholm.
We can keep it on. I just have a real hard time without, especially parents weighing in on us heavily. Again, it's the only area of the town that we have not given a new school to. And I think it's going to be a tough thing. And yes, we're going to bring pre-K there through the feasibility study to a brand new school where the schools would all be together. We weren't splitting families. And we're not doing this to any other school in the city. If you're going to tell me we're going to do this, the Goodyear and the Malcolm White, we're going to be a different, then I'd say, you know what, throw all the cards up in the air and see where we go. But just to do this to one particular school is tough. Unless, we may find out tomorrow the parents are rah, let's go for it, and then that's fine. And if the taxpayers are saying, okay, we'll do this too. We've waited for our new school in North Woburn and we didn't get it, but I'll support you doing this to our kids again, splitting them up and doing whatever we need to do. But, we have to do something, that's fine, but the 8 classrooms at the Reeves, so that means we're going to be taking kids and redistricting. So it's not just fixing this, we're still going to upset other people too. So it's going to be it's going to be a big, huge move. So would that fix the Malcolm White, the Goodyear, and the Harold Wyman? All 3 schools will be fixed by that.
We
Clap and
believe
Harold
so.
kids.
Hypothetically, Ms. Chisholm, if I may.
Yeah.
The Reeves is the largest, you know
Right,
this,
right.
why am I telling you this? But the Harold Wyman we could move some kids out of, I'm just being really transparent, move some kids out of the Harold Wyman that are also close to the Reeves.
Right. Okay.
Move some of the Malcolm White kids that are close to the Reeves. So we would free up space in both of those.
Mhm.
So it's step 1, yes, it's only North Woburn, which I think that loud and clear, I
Yeah.
understand where you're coming from. But step 2 would be a shared burden
Okay.
on,
So with the Malcolm White
Other
kids, it'd be
kids,
like the
other
old
families.
clap kids would go.
yeah,
So they'd be moved.
hypothetically.
Yeah, okay.
So it would be, it would be a significant,
And what about the Goodyear? How would
Thing.
that be remedied?
The same way, the old
Those
clap was
clap
split
kids
into
would go
Goodyear
to-
Yes.
and Malcolm White.
So we'd add busing for the kids
Yes.
that, for all kids for the town clap.
Okay. So it seems as though we do not have consensus on this particular option as one that we can put on the table for removal. Is that fair to say?
Yeah.
Okay. Are there additional options here that people do not see as a viable one going forward?
the space for the preschool, renting space for the preschool. Again, our budget, I don't see where we find that wonderful money to do that. So I just, and again, I don't want to see kids in office buildings. Because then how do we do staff? How do we send over, anybody that needs to be there for the students, and OT doesn't happen or PT doesn't happen in a building because we have to add more people because it's an offsite.
And I wonder if administration might be able to clarify a little bit on that option, Dr. Crowley or Ms. Ryan.
If we do the preschool,
You would build it out. You would have to have a space that could be built out specific for preschool, and it would operate just like an additional building. It would have to be carefully planned with, parking, playgrounds, specialized mobile rooms, specialized bathrooms, etc.
Yeah.
You couldn't just lease any old
Right.
space and begin to use it right away.
yeah, so I'm thinking financially that's not going to be an option, at least in this budget.
Okay. Ms. Watson?
I agree. I think it's a lot of money, and we have to find that perfect space that's all in one building that has all these different rooms that we can use. And not only that, it takes the kids away from their school community. And just the other day, they had, on Tuesday, I think it was, at the Reeves Preschool, they had the 5th grade come in and read to the kids for Read Across America. That wouldn't happen if those kids were in a different building. So I do think it kind of pulls away from that, and community is a big part of schools. And the financing alone would be expensive, and the time we have from now until we can't wait till the start of school. We have to find this place in the next few months, and then get it ready for school, and then teachers have to be able to come in and we have to notify parents as well. So it would be a lot of work logistically too, if we can find the space.
Can I, just one clarification, the one thing that I would point out with that particular option is it would in fact put all of the preschool children together in one space, whereas none of these other options would currently do that. In the option that was discussed with the pre-K, K and 1 at Valinsky, it would only be the Reeves preschool students, simply because there wouldn't be space to also the Shamrock students. So a leasing of space and a build-out is the only option that would put the preschool together, so just for information purposes.
Ms. Ryan, just as a point of clarification, would any of these options allow us to explore full-day preschool?
So if you were to lease a space, you could explore full-day preschool if you were willing to take on 1 additional space, which would be more classrooms, and 2 additional staff for those classrooms, because you're currently running double sessions in many of the rooms. So you would need, you potentially, if you were willing to lease a space with a little bit more room than what you need, and then you were funding the additional teachers, then yes, you could expand to a full day.
All right. And, I will say that Dr. Crowley and I have had sort of preliminary conversations with the mayor on this point. In terms of available space, there are spaces in the city where this could potentially be done. But I would not say that those conversations have gone particularly far, and we are certainly working under a time constraint. So just a point of clarification there. Are there other comments on this, especially from committee members who are in favor of exploring this option further? Mr. Austin.
Are you guys willing to speak about what locations? I know we mentioned office space, but is there any, are you willing to talk about like where in the city?
Or Dr. Crowley, if you wanted to mention some of the spaces, or I'm happy to as well.
I forget the name of the street.
So there were a couple of, the mayor pointed out a couple of
Olympia?
We were on
buildings.
Yeah, we were on Google Maps.
Yeah.
and-
A couple of facilities on Wildwood that are currently up, that have been vacated by companies. One of them, I would say, extremely large.
Right.
The other of a somewhat more manageable size. Both of them, as far as I could tell, with the square footage that fit our needs. But simply those spaces being available is different than us having access to them. And I would imagine that the act of getting them school ready would be a somewhat significant one as well, and a particular strain on our facilities. Ms. Crowley?
An additional comment is if we rent a space for the preschool, the whole preschool could go there, so I like that. But again, we would have to redistrict anyways. So then we would have space at the Shamrock and space at the Reeve. So we would still need to disrupt learners in the same way as with the Linscott option and the redistrict option. So we would be paying for a space and redistricting and not using our own resources to do so. So that's why it just seems like you're chasing your tail. Is that the right? No, eating the snake.
One of
Like
the
a shell game?
Right,
Chasing
doing
something.
something that is just, you're creating more cost at,
Okay.
and doing the same thing.
I was gonna say, I
Redistrict is
like,
doing.
I'm sorry, I like
Give
the
me-
idea.
Are there any committee members who haven't spoken on this point yet before? Okay, yeah, Mr. Ross.
I like the idea and I don't because pre-K is only, 2 years? And then you have to move those children to somewhere else. Then we're back in the same predicament. And we don't know how many kids are gonna be upcoming and go to pre-K.
Any additional points on this?
And I can't imagine tuition staying the same. I'll just say it, how would be our.
Right,
But-
okay.
We did just raise tuition as well, so,
Right.
right, yeah.
That's right, too.
I mean, I do like the idea of having a full day. I think that would be wonderful, but it would obviously come at an additional cost of the classroom and everything. And even if we had more kids to fill it, I don't know how much it would cost to rent. I don't know if the additional tuition would balance out the additional cost of the classroom. But I do love the idea of a full day preschool.
I am not currently hearing any strong support for this option. I think that's fair to say. Would anyone like to make a motion at this time regarding option 5?
6.
Is it option 5?
7.
It's
7, option 7.
How many do we have?
Well, I'll make a motion to move option number 7.
Do I have a second on that motion?
I'll second.
Okay. Any discussion on that motion? This would be a time if members want to speak up in support of this, especially, but also any other comments. Okay. Seeing none, all in favor of removing option 7 and the option to rent space for the preschool, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. So we can remove option 7 as well, and we can inform the mayor that we will not need to investigate that option at this time. Okay, so we have eliminated at this point options 3 and 7. Are there any other options that that seem to have widespread lack of support, or where people would like to discuss whether they do?
If we could,
Mr. Ryan.
Mr. Chairman, just revisit 2 and 4, just to get my clear thoughts again. I wrote it as school choice for all grades. Perhaps I'm wrong. I call it school choice. That's probably not correct choice. And then regionalizing pods for number 4. So you're just kind of redrawing the lines for all schools again. Earlier rather than later.
So, you want me to?
Anybody. I just broke down as we got tonight.
So number 2, yes, Mr. Morenon, really is school choice. So you're correct in that verbiage. Number 4, but with that school choice, there'd have to be space available at the school, and because it's voluntary, transportation wouldn't be provided.
Okay.
For clarification on that, my understanding of it is that we would seemingly be saying there are this many seats
available,
in
Yeah.
these buildings in these grades. So it wouldn't just be like I'm deciding I want to go to the
Right.
Goodyear. It's here is where the space is, and seemingly you're entering a lottery of sorts for those spaces. I say for a slight difference in the sense that it's not just like an open part. You would know where the room is, and it would be somewhat targeted.
Again, this is
For
more for
clarification
public
on
than.
what my understanding of the vision was. That's all.
Is it fair to say as a clarification
Yes.
that if we did something like this, there is still a fairly strong likelihood that a couple of years down the line, we would need to do a larger redistrict regardless. And so that then you would have students who have made multiple school changes over the course of a couple of years. Is that fair to say?
Sure. I think there's a few different, I guess, factors to it. When I look at the options, I think about, right, like it's like your smallest impact of moves to your largest, right? And with that, with the smallest ones, you know, the first few, you're still going to have to, in the next few years, be figuring out a larger fix, right? Like none of those beginning few are going to like solve the problem for the long term. It's just a matter of like level of disruption. And so with that, yes, I think that at the same point, like as you get down the road, you know, are there certain things that are grandfathered in? I don't know, right? I think there's so many factors and so many decisions for, you know, seemingly you're going to have to make along the way that it's hard to say like this is what it would look like.
Okay.
I feel like I didn't really answer your question.
To the best of anyone's ability to do so, I think you did.
Sure.
Ms. Cormier.
Could I make a motion that we remove option 1, art on a card / do nothing?
We can certainly discuss that.
I will-
If we have a second
So
on that
moved.
motion. I am not hearing a second on the removal of option 1. Okay. So we will hold on to option 1 for now. Any other discussion? I know, Mr. Moreno just brought up both
Yeah,
options
kind of
2 and 4.
almost 2 and 4. It's,
Are there any,
Choose an option.
is there any discussion on those? Ms. Swenson?
I'd say for option 2, the school choice with all grades, we could run into an issue where we say we have 14 spots available to help solve a problem in another school, but only 2 families raise their hand and it's 2 kids. And then the next year we have 2, so it only really, it doesn't necessarily even solve the problem. It might just be do a lot of work and nobody says yes. Or we do a lot of work and people say yes, but then the next year we're at the same thing. So we do a lot of work again and we try to get people to volunteer to, drive their kids to whatever school it is that they chose to choose. And then if there's a younger sibling and they also want to be in that school, I understand if we don't have spots, but then we run into the issue, you're driving multiple schools, which again, happens, but that's probably something the parent would take into consideration too prior to saying, yes, I will do that. So it could see that being difficult, and we don't know until we ask, but it could be a substantial amount of work for very little payoff.
And then a bunch move in and
Yeah.
leave them anyway.
Other thoughts on, other thoughts on any, but as we are currently sort of discussing option 2 here. Are there any members who would be heavily in favor of at least continuing to talk about option 2, out of curiosity? Ms. Crowley?
I think it's important to just leave options that do not have a redistrict thing attached to it, just so that there's an alternative to that rather drastic move. I just think it's important to just leave the option there. So for instance, if the school committee decides to take option 1 and wants to press pause for a year, perhaps we could do something a little less impactful with the plan to do something a little bit drastic in fiscal year 26 or something. So that's just my thought. I don't like option 2 or option 4. Option 4 is kind of interesting to me. But 2, I don't like it, but I also think it's just important to keep at this point.
That's fair. Other thoughts on 2, on 4, on any of the others? Okay. It seems as though we may have reached the limit of options that we want to consider removing at this point. Okay. So I think, unless any members have any other additional input at this time. Okay. I'm interested in members' thoughts on the best way to proceed at this point. We need to, in my view at least, communicate these options widely to the public. We need to have, I think, a clearer sense of some of the budgetary implications. And I think we need to have perhaps a clear sense of which of these options still comes with a lot of question marks in terms of how we would pull this off. I'm interested in members' thoughts on how we might want to present this to the public in terms of all of those issues and others that I may not have thought of yet.
I mean, I think maybe we can have our PR firm put something out saying that this is something that we're working on, that we need to have input, and we may have to have a special meeting just for that.
Okay.
You know, I mean, I don't, because I think parents, I mean, if I was a parent of Alta Vista, Linscott Reeves, any preschool, I'd definitely want to be here and hearing it firsthand and not second and third. Or we could even do it, you know, I don't know. So, but, and we, if there's a way that we can find out about redistricting, a few years ago, maybe 8, 9, we had a redistricting, there was a software that they kind of just picked so we could kind of roughly see how many streets would be affected by all this, so that we could, because unfortunately we can't have all first graders born on 5 streets that we could just take for them to go to first grade. So, but we just need to know where those impacts are going to be. But there was software out there. I don't know if it still exists, but
It does.
okay, just so that we can kind of see what it would mean, and would it even solve what we're looking for? You know, because we're not going to want to move families.
Twice,
Yeah,
or 3 times.
yeah, and we've got to make sure if we keep the Joyce lines and the Kennedy lines pretty much the same, or do we change those too, so everybody's. So if we had that information, then that would be good too.
All right. So,
If I could,
Mr. Moore, go ahead.
again, I know you work through the chairperson to get folks to help out with Ms. Crowley's subcommittee, perhaps funnel that, or keep it, I don't know, I like the idea of letting put a little more work on our elementary principals as it is, but, you know, work through their school councils and their PTOs that they're out there. You know, you have your leadership meetings and kind of like, maybe perhaps get the administration's feedback from them to each individual school maybe, or perhaps a question
Can I
from
just
you.
I
I don't know.
What are we asking the
Well, just
PTOs?
allow the elementary principals to at least dispense the information
That's-
of these options, and then
Okay.
get the feedback from their community. Or perhaps, as you did with, Ms. Crowley's building group there, submit questions to you perhaps. I mean, it's gonna be lots, maybe there'll be no questions, maybe it'll just be, yeah, I'm fine, whatever you guys
Maybe.
decide, you know?
I mean, I think we should probably have I mean, this should be a central communication, but certainly having that central communication going out through any networks that we have available is a good idea. But yes, I think a centrally communicated set of options that we have sort of built out to answer as many questions ahead of time as we can. I'm interested in members' thoughts on Mrs. Chisholm's idea of a special meeting on this topic, so that we can continue the business of the committee. We also have some other stuff going on.
Yeah,
as it turns out.
Yes, budget's
We
going
have
to
a
be
budget,
huge,
we have a
yeah.
feasibility study, we have all sorts of education.
March 27th is going to be a long meeting, as it is.
Yes.
So if we can also focus our attention at one specific meeting on this, that might be the best use of our brain power.
Okay. So what I would like to ask for then is if there's a motion to perhaps work to schedule a special meeting on this, and we can discuss whether that's something that members want. And if not, we can go ahead at the March 27th meeting. Mr. Ross?
Would this special meeting allow our community members to offer
Yes.
their opinion and voice?
Yes. Do I have such a motion?
Wait,
Or, yeah, Ms. Chisholm.
The 27th, I don't know, will we have, I don't want people to come here and we still have 6 options. If we could narrow it down or get something that they can come and tell us how it's not going to work for them or would work for them. So we're not sitting here deliberating and then having 20 people come and tell us that they want this and then 15 say this and then we're going to be, I think we need to make a decision or narrow it down to like maybe 2. And I don't know if that's can be done before March 27th. I mean, this budget's going to knock the tail out of a few of us. So, I don't know. But if you think this is something that And would we be able to get the redistricting information by then? That's what I mean. Like, there's a lot of things that we'll need to have a meeting to make decisions like this. So I don't know how long that would take to compile that information. So we might want to push that out just a little bit, but get the information out to people that would give them longer time for them to kind of.
My concern is we are under something of a time constraint on doing this. Is that fair to say, Dr. Crowley?
Yes.
Yeah. Do you have a sense of what that time constraint looks like in terms of where our flexibility is for gathering input, for presenting this?
There's a couple things. One is we have an obligation to produce a budget to the city, typically by early May. Decisions made predicated on this impact the budget. That being said, the other, families need time to consider the impact on what this would look like. And so I think those two, for what it's worth, there's probably more, I would ask City Hall for more grace to if we needed to extend the budget timeline, to give families the opportunity to weigh in, because I think that it's important to hear from them as it relates to the choices being made. But they absolutely are correlated with each other, and so the 27th is a scheduled meeting. We can just plan to be here a long time, or schedule,
I think that I think it's more what I'm hearing is we want the information that we want to make sure that families have. And I think that to have that information, I think it would be, I guess it'd be more interested on what information you want us to get to distribute. And then I think between getting that and then giving everyone time to see it, it's going to be hard to do that probably before the 27th to get the information out, give people time. I think that you could, but it would probably be pretty close to the 27th. They'd probably be two meetings pretty close together.
I would agree, and we love these meetings. So no,
I told how we can go back to back.
Off the top of my head, I don't know the early April meeting.
It would
The first Tuesday.
9th.
The 9th.
9th is what we have scheduled. We could always do one that first week.
We could.
Yeah, I mean,
A question on the process.
Yes.
So what I'm picturing is sort of a public comment on this from the parents prior to our sort of deliberation. Is that accurate?
yes.
Yeah.
And it would be better to have less options for more condensed.
I think Mrs. Chisholm's right, and that was what I was hoping we could move towards, and we've moved towards it. But I think maybe a reduction of another couple options for the public's ability to understand this might be beneficial.
It's through the chair, because I just received this today, so I didn't know. Minutes were awesome, but it's just took me back a little bit, so it's like I need to kind of run this through my head again too.
Okay. Ms. Watson.
I'm wondering if we could potentially do a reduction at our next school committee meeting, hold a special meeting prior to the April meeting, and then we can come with less options to that meeting, and then we have the school committee meeting the week after the special meeting.
Okay, so so just to make sure I understand your proposal, we work at our March 27th meeting to whittle this down further. We present the public not long after that with whatever 2 or 3 options we've arrived at.
Yep.
We have a special meeting that allows the public to provide their input on those 3 options. We make a final determination at our April 9th meeting.
Correct.
Was that
Yes.
fair? Okay.
What about the ideas of having the public voice themselves prior to maybe a poll or something? I feel like we're making a decision that affects so many families where it doesn't necessarily affect my family in general, giving the people the opportunity to speak and voice themselves prior to maybe a poll. Because I think taking away those options is going to be really difficult. We went from 7, now it's 3.
Okay.
We have to choose 3.
Any
We have 5.
thoughts on a poll?
I was wondering if we could just even send this back to Resource to see if they can kind of get it down. I hate to throw that on you guys again, but maybe you could get it down to 3 options and bring it back to us and just keep us in the loop. I mean, you do great with your minutes, so.
I mean, essentially, we really have 2 options.
Yeah.
The regionalization and the infra school choice
Yeah.
is not really a school committee decision. Right?
Yeah.
So what we're really talking about is either Linscott, Alta Vesta situation or a whole redistrict.
District.
I mean, right?
Or art in a cart.
Or nothing.
Or nothing.
And so I know I said earlier that we should keep that option on the table, so. But I also think that really what this is about is whether or not we're going to do a full redistrict or we're going to use the Linscott in a different way than we use it now. And if
So-
you look at it that way.
It's still a pretty
then-
sizable redistrict.
Exactly. So I think that we should proceed as steadily as we can and be as open, like maybe have, I don't know, I like Mrs. Wetzel's idea, but I do think that really what it comes down to is, are we gonna redistrict or not? Are we gonna redistrict big time, or are we gonna redistrict based on moving the preschool to the Linscott and then, so.
I just feel like whatever decision we make, families should know way ahead of time rather than be given 2 options. I think it'll be really challenging to learn this at the last minute, and it's like, oh, I got 2 options. How long have they talked about this?
One night.
Well, and that's sort of why, right, I think you're absolutely right. We want to give families as much time with this as possible. We want to make sure that we are doing our due diligence on all of this. All right, so I think to Ms. Crowley's point, we do have 3 options that are fundamentally operational. And that is option 1, option 2, and option 4.
Yes.
Right?
No, option 2 is interdistrict, right?
It is, but functionally, that, I mean, maybe I'm wrong here, but I don't know that that would really require school committee action.
I was going to say, I don't know if this is helpful, but I think that the purpose of the regionalization one to be on there is in some ways the conversation about number 1, which is that if we did number 1, we're going to need to have some backup plan
Yes.
Okay.
for the Hove Lyman. So if it's helpful in terms of them, I think that when we're talking about like coupling them, I think it's kind of actually those 2 are one.
Administration wants backup so they can assign Pearl Wyman
Yes.
families to the Reeves if necessary.
So in essence,
They need that school committee backing.
so in essence, we really have 3 options before us here. We have option 1 with, depending on how that plays out, options 2 and 4 as how administration could put this into operation. And then we have options 5 and 6, the partial redistrict using the Linscott and Alta Vesta plan, and the full redistrict, option 6. So, I would accept a motion then to put together plans that express those to the public, to get those out in a digestible form that can be disseminated through all available networks, and to then plan further discussion on this on the 27th, and we can. So.
Yep.
I'll accept a motion along those lines and see where we get.
So
So
moved.
are we eliminating 2
Oh,
already?
Mr. Rossman, go ahead.
Yep. Are we eliminating 2 other options and going with 3 now? Is that what?
We are not. What we are saying, if someone were to make this motion, what this motion would basically do is to say that options 2 and 4 are options that the administration can go with if we wind up choosing option 1. Option 1 is the main option. Options 2 and 4 are sub-options to that. And then we have options 5 and 6, the partial redistrict with the Linscott Alta Vesta, and the full redistrict as the other 2 options before the public. So functionally, we have 3 options. Don't redistrict and figure out how that's going to work. Partial redistrict, full redistrict.
I'd like to make a motion.
Ms. Corbett.
I would like to make a motion that we put forward for the community, option 1, art on a cart, colloquially. Option 5, move pre-K to Linscott, and option 6, redistrict entire elementary school, so we can get the conversation started with the community.
Okay.
Second.
Any
How about
discussion?
2 and 4.
So 2 and 4 are basically fall under 1.
Yeah.
So 1, 2, and
If
4
we
are
do-
now 1.
If we
Yeah.
do 1, then the,
If we do one, really, what
They
we're,
Become 2 and,
yeah,
they
we-
use
we-
2 and 4 if
Well,
we need it.
what we're seeking is flexibility,
yeah.
so that
To
if,
fix 1, we need 2 and 4.
You may.
But they make
You
that
may
choice.
potentially.
We don't have that.
And that's
right,
up to you folks to
right,
figure that out.
right.
And then the others are still in the running.
Just going to ask that we keep, raising our hands. Just try to keep this proceeding in a reasonable manner here. So, I'm back to the classroom. Okay, so we have a motion on the table. We have a second. Any discussion on that motion? Okay. All in favor of Ms. Cormier's motion to advance 1, 5, and 6 to the public, and then further discussion on the 27th, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. So that is where we have it at this point. We will put those together, disseminate them to the public as soon as we are able. I would ask those who are listening at home, those who are in the audience today, to speak widely, to make sure that folks, especially those who may not always be able to pay attention to our meetings, but may be very affected by our meetings, to be aware of this process. One of the things when we talk about full district issues is that we have a community that is not always able to fully plug into what we are doing. And I want to make sure that we communicate this to as many people who may not be glued to us. I know we're super exciting, but may not be glued to us all the time. So I ask that people who have access to those networks, please disseminate this so that we can try to hear from as much of the affected community as possible before we make this decision. Ms. Watson.
For the public, who should they reach out to if they'd like to email? What's the best email address to get in touch?
The best email address would be mine.
Yeah.
So, Andrew Lipset at WooburnPS.com.
Thank you.
The inbox is open for now until I run out of space. Mr. Moran.
And just a point of clarification, if I could, Mr. Chairman, on the 27th, it's also the same evening as the CPAC College Fair, just,
It is.
And our budget.
and we had the 28th I had for budget.
28.
28th
Yep.
is not our meeting.
Okay, 28th was not the meeting, so I didn't
I mean, I
know.
think, unfortunately, we've had that meeting on the books
Yeah.
for a
And the
while
Student
now.
Opportunity Act plan also
There's that.
is
and we
also
have-
that night.
All right.
but,
Yeah.
any further discussion on this?
Mr. Chair.
Yes.
I can always have a resource meeting too, which is just another avenue to discuss this more in detail, and it's a public meeting, so I'd be happy to convene one, because I think I have to convene one anyways on other matters, so.
Well, so then why don't we do that? Closer to the March 27th date, we will have resources so that any member who wants to can attend, can ask questions, can try to clarify these plans, so that we are better informed when we come into our meeting on the 27th. Those are always open to the public as well, and we can try to work to get the minutes out publicly ahead of time.
Yes.
Okay. As we are closing this agenda item, I would just ask as well for the public's grace on this. I don't think anyone on this committee has ever done this particular thing before, and we are working on it under difficult circumstances, under difficult constraints. And I know that this is difficult for families and for the community. I will offer that this could affect me personally as well, and so, I feel that with you. But I ask that the public try to work with us as we work through this, and by all means, make your voices heard. So, all right, so we are going to move on at this point to our subcommittee reports. Finance and personnel, you have not met, correct? in the
We
last
have
week?
not met, but we
Tomorrow.
received our budget tonight, so we will be meeting tomorrow morning.
Okay. Principals, thank you so much for all your work on this and for coming tonight. I appreciate it. Principals and vice principals. Community relations. I know we put you on the back burner last meeting, so.
Yes. We met last week, Wednesday, February 28th, 2024, at 5:45 p.m. here at the superintendent's conference room. In attendance was Ms. Chisholm, Ms. Wetzel, Ms. Ryan, Ms. Young, and myself. As far as the first topic was the family engagement update, administration spoke about a new student enrollment software which will be developed by Power School. This software will assist in making the enrollment process more efficient. The administration team is currently in the process of meeting with various districts in order to gain access to their student enrollment templates. We also spoke about 3 members of the family engagement team had a meeting at City Hall along with Courtney Young. They met with Samantha Stone. Conversation with Samantha Stone was in reference to supporting new families that arrived or have arrived in Woburn. And the ideas in that conversation was healthcare needs, SNAP benefits, housing, and more. We also spoke about literacy community update. Courtney Young and Maureen Ryan gave an update about the comprehensive literacy coffee chat that was offered, I believe, virtually.
In 3 places in person and 1 virtual.
3 places in person and 1 virtually, which is an opportunity for families to connect and gain information. We also spoke about community partnerships. Courtney Young and Maureen Ryan gave an update to one of our community partners, which is William James College. William James College will be offering 20 paraprofessionals within Woburn Public Schools an opportunity to obtain an associate degree, which will be 10, and a bachelor's degree, 10 in that area as well. We also talked about ways that the school committee can support school partnerships, and as far as the next topic was, as school committee's communication with the public, we talked about connecting with Samantha Stone and how we can collaborate. And meeting adjourned at 6:35 p.m.
Okay, thank you very much. Any questions for community relations? Okay. Curriculum and data trends.
We're not, Mr. Chairman, although we did vote tonight for the health and history curriculum that was presented tonight for Ms. Young's curriculum, so we appreciate that vote, and we'll meet again soon.
Okay, thank you very much. Policy you have not met as well.
No, sir. We're meeting again on the 22nd, for
excellent.
anybody that's interested.
Resources, we have already spent some time on your minutes, so unless there was anything additional
Do you want
there.
me to read them again?
Let's do it.
Just a few options.
For the
And,
record, yeah, for the record, we met March 4th, 8 to 9:30, and my minutes were the main agenda item.
There we go. Student services achievement, you have not met either?
We have not. We meet again on the 22nd of March.
Very good, thank you. In terms of correspondence, did any committee members receive correspondence to speak of?
I just want to point out the grant
Yes.
award recipients from the Ed Foundation. That's great. 20
What's our total number?
$28,052.
That's fantastic, and I know greatly appreciated by the teachers who are recipients and the school personnel who are recipients. Ms. Watson?
I did receive a request via email to make sure any information that is shared in our packets is also shared publicly, whether that be printouts or any other way it can be shared.
Yes. I am actively exploring ways to do that better.
Yes, we appreciate it. Thank you.
But thank you for bringing that to us. Any additional correspondence? Okay. I did receive correspondence from Mayor Concannon regarding some thoughts about how to coordinate facilities work between the schools and the city better, looking at potentially sort of connecting the school facilities and city facilities. What I'd like to do is, once again, bring that to resources to take a look. I received some descriptions of how this works in other communities this morning from City Hall, so I will forward that along and see if we can get sort of more specific proposal from the mayor that resources can take a look at. We also, Dr. Crowell, I don't know if you wanted to talk a little bit about looking into early retirement when we talk about personnel, or we just have personnel do it. That's fine. Okay. So I'd also like to.
I'll bring it up tomorrow morning.
Yeah, okay. So we'll talk about that in personnel. Yeah. And as has already been mentioned, CPAC College and Transition Fair is March 27th. That does conflict with our next scheduled meeting, but I hope that people are able to attend. It is a fantastic event that I have been to in the past. Any additional correspondence? No. Okay. Future agenda items.
March 27th is the next meeting.
March 27th is the next
Wednesday,
meeting.
27th.
Correct.
Okay,
Yes. All right.
got it.
We have no executive session, so I will accept a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Seconds, all in favor?
Aye.